Office of Economic Development. And I'm delighted to be able to say that this afternoon's webinar will focus on employee recruitment, a hot topic currently here in the city and Silicon Valley and Bay Area in general. We have a very good panel of guest speakers to join us, and I'm delighted that we've been able to assemble this guest panel list to give you the latest information. Here with me are the San Jose team from Economic Development, my colleagues Lawrence Thu, Melina Iglesias, Emily Lapoma, myself, and Elizabeth Handler. And our special guests, Jeffrey Palin of Mission College, Michael Erickson of Manufacture San Jose, Stephen Lee of San Jose City College, and Kate Manley of CET, a great balance and mix of educationalists, industrialists, and practitioners. Thank you, Melina. So just important to note that this is a disclaimer. Whilst every effort is made by the City of San Jose and our partners, interpreters, to provide correct information, none of these parties will accept liability for being misinterpreted, incomplete, or inaccurate. We act in good faith and always consult with a financial or legal advisor on critical issues. Thank you. So, important information for you as the participant. We have live interpretations today. So if you would prefer to listen to this commentary and webinar in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Mandarin, you can do so. You select the interpretation icon that you should see at the bottom of your screen, and using that globe symbol on your tool menu, click the language of your preference. You should be seeing a choice here of either Spanish, Vietnamese, or Mandarin. I'll give you some 10 to 15 seconds to click on the icon and make your choice so that you're able to move to the room that you would prefer to listen to this webinar in the language that is most comfortable for you. Please note that the recording will be made and uploaded to our YouTube channel and posted on our website, typically within 48 hours of the completion of today's webinar. And I know from previous webinars that many people who are either unable to attend in person have really sought out our webinar YouTube channel, and I'm delighted that we will be recording again today. So hopefully everyone has now chosen the room that they wish to be in. Let me give you some quick important items to note in terms of how we're going to manage the webinar. First of all, we're very interested in the Q&A, and we will very much welcome the opportunity for any of our attendees and participants to be able to ask questions and to have all those questions answered by the panel. So please use the Q&A, and you'll see the button at the bottom of your screen in the middle where it's just marked Q&A. Click on there, and then you will see a box come up, and you write in that box the question you would like to ask. We'll also have chat, and in the chat, we'll post links and information that may be of use to you and of value, which may be more detailed, documents and links to other websites, particularly websites that colleges have and other organizational and education and training providers have that you may find of value as well. And last but not least, we always like to engage in a post-webinar survey which we'll email to you, and we'll be delighted for your feedback. We're always looking to learn and improve on what we do. Last but not least, before I hand over to Lawrence, who will be our host for the panel, we have an upcoming business support webinar on Thursday, August the 5th, around marketing, a particularly critical issue at the present as businesses seek to reopen, recover, and gain new customers. So marketing your business is our next topic on Thursday, August the 5th. That's all from me. Let me hand over to Lawrence Thu. Welcome, Lawrence. Delighted to see you, and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. Very much appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon and to be joined by four really very well-experienced and knowledgeable colleagues out in the field here whose portfolios all include business services and business engagement. A quick word about myself before we proceed into this afternoon's conversation, and a brief word about how we're doing this afternoon as well. I'm Lawrence Thu, as Vic mentioned. I have the privilege of leading the business engagement and employer engagement team for Work to Future, which is a workforce development board that serves about 2/3 of Santa Clara County and is staffed by the City of San Jose's Office of Economic Development. In that capacity, we strive to help the business community in our region, in our community, meet their workforce needs, their employment needs, in ways that will contribute to their success, while helping job seekers in this community, particularly job seekers from underserved and underrepresented communities, find pathways to quality employment opportunities, to good paying jobs, and the opportunity to find the means to support themselves and their families well here in Santa Clara County. Over the course of this afternoon's webinar, we'll engage in a conversation with 4 of my colleagues, as I mentioned, who do similar work out in the field. We will be chatting with one another for the next hour or so. We will not be taking you through formal presentations. So for those of you who are really wedded to PowerPoint slides, I'm afraid we're going to disappoint you. We're just going to be chatting with one another and at the same time trying to answer your questions as we go along this afternoon. And we hope that you'll find that an interesting hour and 15 minutes or so. So let me begin by asking my colleagues to do a very quick introduction of themselves. As I call you out, they're just going to let you know who they are and let you know who it is that they represent, who it is that they work for and with. So let me begin. I'm just going to do this in alphabetical order. And Michael, you're on.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Erickson. I'm the Regional Director for Manufacturers San Jose here in San Jose.
Thank you so much, Michael. And next up is Stephen Lee.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Lee. I'm the Job Development and Placement Specialist for San Jose City College. I work in the Business and Workforce Development Division, specifically in the area of career education.
Thank you, Stephen. And Kate?
Hi, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to join you today. My name is Kate Manley. I am an Industrial Relations Specialist for the Center for Employment Training here in San Jose.
Thank you, Kate. And last but definitely not least, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Palin. I'm Dean of Business Technology and Kinesiology at Mission College in Santa Clara. We like to say we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. And in addition to my role within the college, I'm also the lead for our district in workforce development and community engagement.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you all. And thank you everybody again in the audience for joining us this afternoon. We're actually going to expand this afternoon's conversation beyond strict employee recruitment issues, but we're going to lead from there. We've just been coming through and are hopefully coming out of a really interesting and challenging year and a half or so, when much of the county has been, and in fact much of the world has been locked down because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we've been coming slowly out of the pandemic, or out of the shutdown period anyway, we've certainly seen an increasing number of news stories and seen postings and social media sites and so forth about the challenges that at least some employers are finding in trying to bring employees on board, to find employees, especially if they've let a bulk of their employees go because of the pandemic control measures. And so we're going to begin by just talking about what each of our organizations do with respect to employment services. And then I'm hoping that we'll have the time this afternoon to share with you some information about what each of our organizations does in terms of helping you as employers develop your employees once you have them on site and increase their value to you and increase their capacity to help your businesses succeed. So we'll start with employment as a subject and then talk about the other kinds of resources that you can access through organizations like ours. We'll also take a moment to share what we're seeing out in the field in terms of other organizations and resources that might be available to you as an employer in terms of trying to meet your workforce development needs, and particularly resources that are available to you at little or no cost, which is generally speaking true of all of the organizations represented on this afternoon's panel. So, colleagues, if I may, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to very quickly explain what it is that Work the Future does in terms of employer services, at least on the recruitment side. We are an organization that has offices in San Jose, in Gilroy, and a satellite presence at the EDD's North San Jose office on Zanca Road. Our largest center is the San Jose Job Center, which is currently located in the Cambrian district of San Jose and will be moving around the end of the year to a new location over on Las Plumas Boulevard in East San Jose. However, because of the pandemic, we've actually had all of our centers physically closed for the last 18 months, and we don't expect them to be coming back online for another month or so. So Work the Future is actually developed, and we did this within a month of the shutdown back in March of 2020. A pretty extensive capacity to provide services both to employers and to job seekers remotely through a combination of telephone-based services, email-based services, and web-based services. And we have extended our reach also through multiple two-way conversation channels in social media, including the major platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So employers have multiple ways of reaching us to inquire about the employment recruitment services that we offer. And these take multiple forms. Without digging too deeply into any of them, I'll just mention that we have a jobs posting platform on our website, which is workthefuture.org, where any employer is welcome to post their openings, and again, at no cost. They can self-serve on that jobs board, but they can also request that our staff help them to post their job openings. In addition to job postings, however, we work with several hundred job seekers on a continuing basis. So whenever job postings come in, the staff that work with job seeker clients are also scanning those job postings and looking for ways in which to proactively suggest possible recruiting matches for each of those employers. So that happens in the background as well. In addition to job postings, however, we also host and stage several job fairs a year. In fact, we do that both individually and in partnership with other organizations like San Jose City College, whom you'll hear from as well this afternoon. And we have one coming up at the end of this month on the 31st of July that we're doing in partnership with the Villa de Frank Center in San Jose. And I'll just take the opportunity to mention that we are still open for additional employers at this time. So please don't hesitate to visit our our website, worktofuture.org, or to reach out to me. We'll have contact information up at the end of our conversation, at the end of today's webinar, to inquire about how you as an employer might be able to take advantage of that job fair or any of the others coming up later. Then in addition to that, we also do specialized recruitments for employers. These are one-off events that we stage with individual employers to bring in a large number of people who might be interested in their recruiting and their employment opportunities. With our colleagues at the EDD, we also facilitate your use of CalJobs, which actually allows you to reach several thousand people throughout the immediate area and also access job seekers throughout the state. So let me stop there. I've been going on for long enough and ask my colleagues, each of them, to share with you how their organization helps an employer, whether it's large or a small employer, recruit new employees. Is there a cost to an employer when it seeks your help? And let me just ask Michael to address that question first, and we'll go around the table from there.
Thank you, Lawrence. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share what we do today. So Manufacture San Jose, for those of you who don't know, we launched just over 3 years ago here in San Jose as a partnership between SF Made in San Francisco and the City of San Jose's Office of Economic Development. We very early on in our conversations with the manufacturers we're engaged with we're told pretty universally that the companies that we're engaged with are struggling to find a talent pool to be able to hire from. And so the first step we took is in January of 2019, we launched our job board. And so in addition to now we're engaged with over 100 manufacturers here in San Jose, we're also engaged with probably an equal number now of workforce partners across the city and county. And so the job board essentially serves as a connecting fiber to the companies we're engaged with and the open positions that they have, and the clients that are being served by our workforce partners. And it can be anything from the more technical positions of, a assembler, a CNC operator, to even sales and marketing positions. It's not specific to those sort of higher skilled positions, but those, right now are the ones of greatest need. Lawrence, you're on mute.
I keep doing this, and that's forgetting to unmute myself. Forgive me, everybody. Stephen, you work with one of the 7 community colleges here in Santa Clara County, and I know San Jose City College and Work to Future have partnered on several job fairs. But in addition to job fairs, I'm sure that there must be a great deal that San Jose City College does to facilitate employment from the employer's perspective.
Yes, and Lawrence, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the invite. So like you mentioned, outside of just the standard job fairs that we host every single semester, both spring and fall, depending on the proactiveness of the employer, whatever the position, however many number of openings you may have, there's definitely nothing too small of a task that we can sort of get visibility to our student population and also our alumni network as well. So if an employer wants to be proactive in their approach, if they wanted us to send an email marketing campaign to our current active student population or engage with our alumni network, that's all of a free cost to you. That will cost nothing from your company. All you do is just send me an email, and like Lawrence mentioned, our contacts will be revealed at the very end. We also already offer virtual classroom presentations. So if you actually want to coordinate with a faculty member in any proficiencies that we currently support, 15 different career education programs, whether it be dental assisting, business, accounting, marketing, we can definitely work with you as well on your approach. We can also post on our social media accounts. So it's a matter of just getting it out on our LinkedIn platform, or emailer, or if it's just on our College Central network, that's the job board platform we're currently are using. A matter of setting you up an account and posting the job and interacting with our students that way. You can then create a pipeline for yourself to engage with the community that is currently seeking for positions, and that you can actively screen and provide your tentative questions that you ask to the actual person that is going to be qualified for the position in order to get them to the next stage if an offer stage is next in the realm. So if you actually are interested, we do currently have many different options to engage with our population. It's all about that outreach, and we can definitely work with you on what the best course action is on what the need is, if it's a one opening or many openings.
Terrific. Thank you, Stephen. Kate, for the Center for Employment Training, you, like the two community colleges here, are in the business of training people up. In the case of CET, specifically for work opportunities and to build career pathways. What is it that CET does in terms of its relationship with employers?
Great, thank you so much. Actually, the Center for Employment Training is a nonprofit national organization that is accredited by the Council on Occupational Education. Just a little bit about CET. My location is located here in San Jose, but we do have 12 centers in the United States and 10 centers are in California. The programs here at the San Jose location include automotive, baking, computer support, culinary arts, early childcare, electrical, green building construction, HVAC, health information technology, and medical assistant. To help our employers, much like my counterparts, we're here to definitely help put great people to work with your teams. Small businesses are the backbone of our city. By posting positions with us here at CET, we can post them on our job board. We can send out job opportunities to our trades through our school distribution email system, and bring you in for those virtual or in-person presentations. We're not allowed to have a job fair here on site as of yet, but I am happy to have small groups present to our students and our classes, in specific, offer a tour and start that brand marketing component where students that are current students get to know your company and can start thinking of you as a possible option as they graduate. CET is not a semester-based program as some of my counterparts. We are open entry, which means a student could start today and they'll be in the program for about 8 months, 900 hours, from 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. And we were just excited to work with each of you.
You're muted again, Lawrence.
That's because nobody really needs to hear me. You guys are perfectly capable of carrying this conversation on your own. Just launch into it the next time I do that. But Jeff, the view from Mission College over there in the, as you say, the heart of Silicon Valley.
Sure, yeah. Thanks a lot, and greetings to everyone. I want to start off by saying everything you've heard already are things that all of us provide in one form or another. We heard from City College. Mission College is a college very much like City College. We do very much the same sorts of things. But what I'd like to talk about just briefly as a way of characterizing what all of us do, there's a short-term benefit and then there's a longer-term benefit, and you get to choose. The short-term benefit is you can come to any of us. We have students, we have individuals, we have programs, and you can plug into those. So if you need to recruit a student for a particular specific need today, or you need to look for an employee for a more long-term opportunity, all of us have that ability to provide for you. In addition to that, one of the things that Mission College does is we work with employers on their specific needs. Just to give you an example, recently we worked with a couple of employers in Santa Clara County and developed a program that is now going through and has received curriculum approval from the state. These are certificate programs in IT help desk, data analytics, and project management. So those are STEM related fields. Speaking of STEM, we also have a new mechatronics program we've launched. But in addition to some of the things that Steve mentioned and Kate has mentioned, as well as Michael in their organizations, we have graphic design, we have accounting, we have general business. We also have fire protection and EMT, as well as childcare and early childhood development programs. So all of us together have a variety of current programs that are relevant for your needs, as well as the ability to develop new programs specific for yours. The development, of course, is a little more long-term, but we can at least help you look into the future and see what you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a lovely summing up and putting in a nutshell the resources that our audience can find at all of our organizations and at other organizations that are like ours. I'm wondering, colleagues, from your experience with these resources available, from your experience working with employers, what's your sense of what an employer should do to meet their recruiting needs most successfully when taking advantage of your recruiting related services? And does it matter whether they're trying to fill just one position or many positions when they come to you? Let's begin with Stephen this time.
Perfect. That's a great question. So it doesn't matter whether they're filling one position or several. The approach, I guess, it all depends on the sense of urgency of filling that particular role. So if it's a means of a entry-level position, if it's a mechanical assembler or a dishwasher, I mean, it's all in the hands of the employer to make sure that the overall end user process ultimately is positive for the applicant and also for the employer as well. What I've seen some bottlenecks is that the employer, from the student's perspective, have mentioned that there's the time sensitivity, that getting themselves through that sort of holistic process of recruitment has either been unfavorable for them because they weren't moving quick enough and they accepted another position from another employer. So speed is definitely of an importance, and also flexibility of said schedule. So if you have a position that requires someone to be there for a first shift, second shift, or graveyard shift, you definitely must state that in the job description. I've seen a number of job descriptions that were only a encapsulation of an umbrella of what this person will be doing their day-to-day, but it's only many more hats that they will be wearing as well. So instead of blindsiding the applicant who's interviewing in the process, provide that open communication to that person to let them know what the said expectations are of the said job, to ensure that they have a full understanding of what is expected of them before they choose to proceed forward, and also reduce the sort of turnover activity as well.
Perfect. And do you work with an employer to help them position their recruiting efforts with you as successfully as possible?
Yes, that's correct. So if there's a student that I would more than happy make a recommendation, I would definitely have them send me, and of course, using my services as a career developer to help coach them to fabricate and write an actual resume that is going to be sort of easy on the eyes, and sort of our ability to dictate what is a pertinent information that needs to be on a resume. We all know what a skeletal of what a resume should possess, but those are some of the smaller things I do to coach that particular student or alumni to get them in the interview processes of a said company, to make sure that they are set up for success rather than failure.
Thank you. Kate, what about you and your colleagues at CET? What should an employer do to be successful in their recruiting efforts when they're working with you?
Well, first of all, I want to definitely echo what Stephen was saying. Very well said. All jobs should be posted. Doesn't matter if it's one job or a lot of jobs. I do recommend that you reach out to each and every one of us to post your opportunity. But one of the key things really is to be specific in your job lead. Are you open to part-time, full-time? Being vague does not help you when you're trying to fill a position. If it is a traveling position, what does that mean to you? Is that going from city to city in California, or is that state to state throughout the US? Is it where they need to have a vehicle? Are you looking for entry level, or do they really have to have the bachelor's degree and 3 years of experience? Are you willing to, those key components will help us help you. As we are coaching and our students to apply to these positions, understanding the application process. Having a lot of hoops can be very challenging for some of the students, the students that come to our school. Our colleges may not have been the right choice. They're hands-on learners. They're not necessarily the proficient in Microsoft Word and Excel, but they just need a little guidance and help. And so with that training, they're able to do it, but we will also help them with the application process. And we want to be able to streamline it for the employer as well as the student. So by being specific, that can really help you as an employer get your jobs filled.
Terrific, thank you. And Michael, what would you add to that from your perspective at Manufacture San Jose?
So I think I really just want to echo what Kate and Stephen just said. I think one of the biggest, when employers are crafting job descriptions, I think knowing exactly what the requirements are, exactly what you need, is really the most critical piece. It's, we've had companies who've come to us and said, we're looking for a sales rep. And so we say, okay, great. And they send us a job description that looks perfect for a sales rep. And then we'll send candidates from our workforce partners to them. And they'll say, well, this person wasn't great because they didn't have shop experience. And our response was always, well, you didn't ask for shop experience. So of course they're not. So it's really getting into that and really uncovering. And for us, when we see job descriptions, the first thing we do is just go through them to make sure that what they're asking for is very clear, that there's no sort of conflicting guidance in the job description. And that way it just makes it easier for the job seeker to sort of hone in on what they're looking for. The other thing that we do that I should mention is, and in addition to going through job descriptions, and as Stephen and Katie said, like helping companies craft or retool their job descriptions, we'll also screen candidates initially to make sure that they do have the skills that they're looking for. So I think it's really understanding exactly what they need. And then in terms of the quantity, we had, for example, and Lawrence and others on this call know very well, we had worked with Amy's Kitchen this year in hiring for their facility on Las Plumas. And they initially came in and said they were sort of replacing another food company that was at the site. And so they had about 20 or 30 employees that were remaining, but ultimately they were looking for 100 plus people. So that was really the first time that we worked with a company whose need was that large. And I think one of the amazing things about the network in San Jose and Santa Clara County is everyone's looking to come together at moments like that to make sure that every position that these employers are filled. So it's it's, you tell us what you'll need and we'll make it happen, but it's also make sure you understand exactly what you need.
Terrific, thank you. And is there a cost for your recruiting related services?
So there is no cost because we're funded through the city of San Jose, through the Knight Foundation, Irvine Foundation, Sobrato Family Foundation, and some banks as well. Nothing is sort of incurs any cost in our work. The only thing that we ask for is the case that we've made when we started back in San Francisco 12 years ago and in San Jose 3 years ago is that manufacturing jobs are a sort of way to kind of help close the equity gap here in San Jose, because they do offer higher paying jobs for those who might not have felt that having a 4-year degree was part of their trajectory. So what we ask for, the other piece I should also add is that in addition to the higher wages that can come from careers in manufacturing, it's the development opportunities that are available within these companies. And so we ask annually for some information regarding that, and to see how wages have developed over time and how training opportunities have developed over time within these companies. And that information basically stays, we'll share it, of course, in aggregate when asked, but all that information stays within our 4 walls.
Terrific, thank you very much. Jeff, I'm going to guess that that in terms of supporting employer recruitment success, that Mission College does much of the same, and perhaps layers on additional assistance as well. Is that a correct assumption, would you say?
Sure. Yes, we have a career center. We ask that employers register with our career center, and then they are able to post jobs to recruit students who are in our career center and registered as well. And everything that everybody has said is critically important. But there's one thing I want to add, and that is, and we have noticed this in our work with employers, one of the things that I think is really important and actually represents a high risk to the employer in recruiting is, do you know that you're getting somebody who's a keeper? Because turnover and churn of employees is extremely expensive. And maybe you find somebody who looks really good and you've identified very specifically what the job skills are, the hours, the location, and everything else. Somebody starts, but for one reason or another, they don't work out. And one of the reasons that they may not work out, and we hear this a lot from employers here in Silicon Valley and in Santa Clara County, is that the individual does not have what I'll just call the basic skills of going to work, staying at work, showing up on time, showing up ready to work, listening to questions, answering those questions, communicating clearly, and so forth. Something that we folks in workforce development and education call soft skills, but they are by no means soft in the sense of not being important. They're quite important. And so one of the things that we also offer, and I think this is true certainly of others, is we offer what's called work-based learning, which is an opportunity for a student to earn credit towards his or her degree or certificate, and at the same time be actually working. It is supervised by a faculty member. There can be stipends to pay the student. And this is an opportunity for you as the employer to evaluate whether or not this individual is worth employing. At the same time, it's an opportunity for the individual to actually gain some of the work experience that's necessary to become a valued and long-term employee for any of your organizations.
Terrific. And are there costs associated with this?
Well, generally speaking, no. For the employer, no. There is, of course, the indirect costs funded through unemployment insurance, because the individual is an employee of the company, although there are no direct out-of-pocket costs. Those are covered by the college.
Terrific. Thank you very much. So, Jeff, let me throw this question at you first then. We've talked about what each of you do in terms of trying to support employer success in their recruitment efforts. What are the things that you tend to see employers do that gets in the way of their recruiting success? And in a related vein, one of our audience members asks if we have seen any common denominators that tie together why people do not take the work that's offered to them. And we're certainly, I suspect that's being asked in the context of the kinds of news stories that we're seeing periodically now about it being so hard for some businesses to find workers, despite the still high unemployment rate and the fact that the economy is a long way from where it was pre-pandemic in terms of employment.
Well, if we think back to where we were pre-pandemic, it was very difficult to find employees because we were, in the words of the economists, we were in full employment, which basically meant that it was very hard to find people because everybody was busy, everybody was working. Remember what the freeway was like in terms of traffic back then. We still haven't returned to that. But currently, as we struggle to emerge from the pandemic and as we struggle to open our doors to return to some form of normalcy, one of the stories that we've heard from employers about recruiting, well, there's really two aspects to it. The first, very simply, is that people are reluctant to come back to work. For one thing, we don't know. Is the virus going to suddenly spread and tomorrow I'm going to be in a lockdown again? So that uncertainty is really preventing some people from taking employment right now. It's like, I don't want to commit because I don't know. Oh boy, am I going to really be able to take public transportation, for example? Or there are other barriers. For example, transportation in general can be a barrier. But one of the things that we find when we talk to employers who are interviewing to recruit employees right now, one of the things we find is that potential employees are becoming a little bit more selective. And this is as a result of the fact that prior to the pandemic, you know, a potential employee could almost write their own job description. And now people are coming back and saying, well, I know I can't write my own job description, but at the same time, I really want to make sure that the job that I'm seeking and the company that I'm going to work for is the right company for me. So employees, potential employees have become a little bit more selective. So we're hearing that it's a little bit more balanced between the need of the employer and the need of the potential employee. And that's one thing we've heard very recently.
Terrific. Does anybody else on the panel have some insight into that question from your perspective? I mean, do you see employers sort of shooting themselves in the foot unintentionally when they're trying to recruit employees? And are you seeing any common denominators out there about why employees or potential employees might not be either particularly active in the job market right now, despite the still high unemployment, or are turning down certain kinds of work? Anybody? Kate, go ahead.
Well,
I see you poised to say something, so please do.
Well, I mean, in our case, it depends on the position. I do have a lot of employers looking at the same number of people for jobs. So when you are posting a position, and you have a couple people apply, I do ask you as an employer also look to get back to them fairly quickly because there are so many people vying for candidates. Yes, I saw in the Q&A session, you know, people asking about salary, wage, transportation. All of those are always going to be variables in why people are not necessarily going to work. But there are people hungry to work and that really want to get out there in the job market. They do have more options to weigh transportation, driving to and from, and the distance to and from work. There's now also telecommute options for individuals where maybe they have a childcare barrier, but they can still work while they're trying to do the childcare barrier. So some employers may need to relook at the scope of their position. Is it something that can offer a little bit of time flexibility or additional benefit if you can't increase wage, if that's what the person's looking for? I mean, it's a whole new world for all of us. There are people out there that do want to work. There are also people that are willing to wait a little bit. So, I mean, we still have that balance.
Thank you, Kate. Michael,
Lawrence,
Stephen, any thoughts?
If I could just piggyback off of what Kate said and also revert back to the first question around things that employers have to do and some mistakes that they make in recruiting. One of the biggest mistakes that companies make in hiring is not getting back to candidates in a timely manner. And, at this point, the talent pool is, I think, overall being more selective about the jobs they go to, and especially in, when we're talking about the difference between remote work and in-person or even sort of customer-facing or client-facing positions. I still think that there is some trepidation out there around, going back to the office or going back to engage face-to-face. Certainly, I'm Howard using it in my apartment over the last year and a half, although I'm keeping my nails nice and short. But there is, now it is more of a, it's more of a dance. It's more of almost like a speed date situation where they are looking, where some candidates were just sort of desperate to get back into the workforce. Now they are being more selective, and they're really trying to find the same level of sort of cultural fit that employers are looking from candidates that are coming in. So, and that I don't see changing probably for the remainder of the year.
Thank you, Michael. Stephen, anything to add in that regard?
Yeah, so just like what everybody is echoing, they're mentioning about that the candidate pool is being more sort of selective because of the number of opportunities that are out there are such vast. They're also taking the initiative to apply to every job, whether they're qualified or not for the position, just to get the number of sort of replies back that they either got an automated response that they didn't qualify for the position. They're trying to basically bank on getting as many offers as possible and making the best selection based on whatever parameters are important to them, whether it's the scope of whatever you're doing in the position in terms of your impact, what is the sort of rate of pay, the commute, how far is it from the residing area. Some of those different attributes are important to them. So they are also being very selective. And because of the level of uncertainty with everything that's going on, they're also, like everybody else has mentioned, sort of the people who are boots on the ground getting into the office. They're more sort of lenient to try to find something that's either remote or at least have the sort of promises of being remote initially. And then once things are returning back to normalcy, that they'll actually be in the office.
Great, thank you very much. I think we're all sort of aware that the data indicates that that although the unemployment, the number of people out of work is still at a fairly extraordinary level, the reality is that for a variety of reasons, including ones that are baked into the employment infrastructure, the people are still not returning to the workforce in the numbers that existed pre-pandemic. So the number of job seekers actually net is still fairly modest compared to the demand for workers out there. And of course, there are inhibitors like lack of access to affordable childcare, which existed before the pandemic, but I think which the pandemic actually has compounded because, of course, of children having to stay home from school at the same time, and therefore increasing the burden of things like childcare on parents. So thank you all very much for that. So I'm going to take this opportunity to broaden our discussion a little, as I'd indicated at the beginning of our conversation this afternoon. And Jeff, you were already beginning to touch on it a few minutes ago, but beyond the services that we all provide to directly support employee recruiting, how does each of our organizations work with employers to meet their workforce needs and to support the success of their employees? And let me offer a few examples from the perspective of Work Future as you think about what it is that your organization does, right? So in addition to the straightforward recruiting kinds of services that I mentioned earlier, like specialized recruitments or job fairs and what have you, we also invest resources in helping employers retain the employees they already have by giving them opportunities to develop and enhance their value to the employer. We do this in the form of what we call incumbent worker training, but which simply means that we are in a position to help fund your efforts as an employer to add to the skill sets that your existing employees already have to meet needs that your business has, so that they become more valuable to you as an employee. We also help to subsidize and fund and actually help employers put together apprenticeships which are an opportunity not only to recruit and bring in new employees, but then to develop them in ways that are specific to your businesses, to your company's needs, and to build careers for them. As Jeff indicated with his remarks about work-based learning, we do something similar as a workforce board, and that is that we support work experience opportunities, which is a type of work-based learning where an individual is actually learning on the job. And this gives employers an opportunity to gain exposure with potential employees at minimal risk and cost to themselves. And then finally, well, not finally, but finally, in terms of the time I'm going to occupy here, we also invest a fair amount of money in subsidizing on-the-job training. So for employers who are bringing new employees on board, once you have them on board, you need them to skill up so that they can actually step into the roles that you've hired them for. Organizations like Work to Future, we and other workforce boards have the means to subsidize that initial training that you provide to your new employees. So panelists, what do your organizations do to help employers support the value that their employees who are already on board with them enhance their value to the employer and to increase the likelihood that they'll actually remain with their employer to advance their careers rather than taking off to another company? Let's begin with Kate on this one, if we may.
Okay. Well, our trainings are hands-on intensive, so it's theory and hands-on. So for a current worker that is with you, if they're interested in taking a short-term training, we do have night classes and day classes. So depending on the skill or the trade, individuals could enroll. There is a cost for enrollment. We are a nonprofit organization, but there are grants available for specific level programs. But as an employer, they can also serve on a technical advisory board that can help us keep our curriculum current to help us as we're training the new potential employees to improve in the skill. And so we can keep that training current and they're learning the new tasks that your specific company may want. Sorry, as I trip over those words. But there's a lot of things that we can do together with the organization to try to help with that component.
Thanks, Kate. Stephen.
Yeah, so just like you mentioned, Lawrence, and thank you for contributing, Kate, and very similar to some of the education sort of like hands-on, get in and get out careers where you're getting a set number of hours and then going for that certificate or that degree, and then getting acknowledged by the State Board of California to be able to perform that said job duties, responsibilities. So aside from being able to have the employer involved, we do have something similar to what Kate mentioned, is in the form of advisory boards, where your opinions and your feedback is detrimental to making sure that we have an updated curriculum with regards to software or any types of hardware that you use on the day-to-day. So Michael might know there's different types of machinery, whether it be a milling machine or a lathe. If there's a model or a different types of manufacturer machine that you are currently actively using, we can definitely try to implement that in our curriculum by having you attend and actually interact with our direct faculty to make sure that we have that sort of ongoing relationship where you can come pop in with our classrooms to engage with our student population, to advertise, promote some of your job opportunities, and to keep that sort of like momentum. So if you are in fact hiring capacity of something that is ongoing, that is never closing, that's something that you want to establish with creating a very good fostering relationship so you can continue to staff that position if in case you're not able to find long-term employment and only able to see short-term employment. So it's all about your sort of activity and how proactive you want to be, and also be able to identify what are some of the must-haves that this person must possess in order to be successful at your company as well.
Terrific, thanks. Michael, adding value.
So there are a couple of things. The first thing I want to mention is one of the things that we do is in our engagement with manufacturers, there are those that have varying degrees of difficulty with the overall culture within their companies. And so we will take time to advise them around how to improve owner-employee engagement, how to find ways to make their companies more sort of inclusive, and making sure that there's a clear line of communication all around. And that's, I think, one of the keys to having a great culture within a company is welcoming employee feedback and creating those both direct and in some cases even indirect, if necessary, pathways of communication between the employee and the owner of the company. One of the things that we've been working on to address the skilled talent pool gap in San Jose is we've been developing this CNC operator training program in partnership with Goodwill Silicon Valley and Metro Edge. And the development of that really started first from the owners and operators of the machine shops and other manufacturers around San Jose saying, we are dying for these positions to be filled. And in particular, we had one company during a sort of advising session say, we currently have 10 positions needing to be filled in this one field with, based on the number of orders coming in, we need 15 more in the next 6 months. So there's clearly a need. It's the lack of skilled talent that is really sort of the obstacle here. But we had feedback from companies as large as Northrop Grumman to as small as some of the 5 to 10 person machine shops that are all over the city. And those are the companies that initially said, just bring them to us, we'll train them here. They just need a willingness to work and a willingness to learn. And then it was, but they also need to convert decimals to fractions and vice versa. They need to understand blueprint reading, and et cetera. And so the list sort of developed from there. But that became the foundation for what this training program will be. And so having the employer feedback in those areas to ultimately help them is really critical.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Jeff, the Mission College, I no doubt is in the business of helping employers add value to their existing employees. Sure. Tell us a little bit about that from your perspective.
I'm at the risk of sounding a little wonky. I'm going to talk with some language from the education world here in the state of California to describe a little bit more about how we would help a specific employer with employee needs. And we've heard from the others about what we call upskilling. So for example, let's say you have an employee who's doing a really good job in his or her job currently, and you'd really like to see them move up in your organization to a higher level of responsibility, but that higher level of responsibility requires some specific skills that are needed that the employee may not have at this moment. Certainly the catalog in either of the two colleges you're hearing from, or certainly from CET or Manufacturer San Jose, we certainly can do that. And one of the ways in which the community college can do it in the short term is we can develop very quickly what's called not for credit. This is not a curriculum or credit bearing course. This doesn't go through the state chancellor's office for approval. This can be funded by Work to Future or any of the other city, state, or federal programs for workforce development. And we can develop it very quickly and very easily. So that's one way. So let's say, for example, you have a bookkeeper and you want to see this bookkeeper move up the accounting ladder. We would be able, and any of the other partners here would be able to help develop a very quick workshop or two, or a little bit more than just a workshop, very quickly to help that employee. So that's one way in which we can assist. Certainly another way that Mission College can assist is we can actually take a specific employee that you have, and you may want to see them earn a certificate or a degree. And then there's financial aid for the student. There's all kinds of support services for that student to actually get enrolled as a student at the college and progress through the program itself. So those are two ways in which we can do it. But another way, and Steve, you at City College, you alluded to this when you talked about advisory boards. We certainly are always looking for employers to sit on our CTE advisory boards. It's a requirement of education code in the state of California. And that's another way in which you can get involved and influence us to help you develop the skills of your current employees as well as your future employees. So there's a variety of ways. I guess what we're all saying, all four of us are saying to all of you is, let's not be strangers. Let's work together.
Well said, Jeff. And just to clarify, or just to satisfy my curiosity, with respect to the customized not-for-credit program that the community college has the capacity to put together for specific employer needs, does that come at no cost as well, or is there usually going to be a cost that's associated with that to the employers?
That really depends. For example, we're working with the city of Santa Clara right now on a not-for-credit program. We've some of the people who are very, very energized about this are bringing in the state and the federal government, because this is actually of national concern. So it has legs, it has reach. And this program is being funded by the city of Santa Clara. So there is no cost to the employer itself. Now, whether the city of San Jose would want to do that, well, we already heard from Lawrence that they can. They can bring in federal, state, and local funding for that. We heard from Manufacturer San Jose. They are funded in part by the city of San Jose. And there are other ways that we can also fund these kinds of developments and programs. Just to give you an example, the state of California has what's called Strong Workforce, which is a very robust funding stream. And if an employer came to us and said that they wanted to deploy a not-for-credit program to take employees and bring them up from being bookkeepers to being staff accountants, we would be able to develop something very quickly and fund it ourselves. And then the program would be enrolled through some other grant that would cover those costs. So yes, there are ways in which these will be either low or no cost to the employer.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And thanks for the plug about funding programs. That's good. Thank you. Checks in the mail. Panelists, there have been a couple of questions that have come in. I'm just going to break the flow for a second because the questions do kind of take us back a little bit to some of the subjects that we touched on earlier in the conversation, and both early in the conversation and then more recently. Karen Ashike asks, do you think a higher minimum wage, a minimum wage that's $17 an hour or more, would help employers find more employees? From what you're seeing, are you seeing anything that informs you at all about the wage issue, especially at the low end of the scale? Anybody?
So there are a couple of things that it's a very tricky question. I think there are a lot of companies, especially smaller companies, that at $15 an hour, because of the cost of doing business, both here in San Jose and in the county, California, et cetera, $15 an hour is tough for some. Certainly some of the more technical positions that are available, and some of the even, so there's a balance. And I apologize if I'm getting into this in sort of a muddled way, but there are pressures on the companies in San Jose to ultimately stay and grow in San Jose, and wages will only be benefited by companies that are able to do that. And some companies, like a lot of machine shops, have very, very thin margins. So there isn't a whole lot of, if they're raising their wages, they're also raising their prices, and then they're pricing themselves out of their competition. But then some of those will offer, because I get told countless times that it's hard to compete for engineers, for example, when they're willing to pay them a sort of cap of 150, when Google is willing to take them off the street for 250K or in that range. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think if some of the cost of doing business pressures are relieved for companies, or if there's some incentive mechanism to sort of allow that to happen, I think being able to increase the minimum wage is doable. But the other thing is, there are some companies that, because of their the fear of sort of losing employees to other competitors, there are companies that would be even probably willing to, go that far as well.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael, for sharing that. Any other thoughts on the question, folks? So I will volunteer that at Work to Future, we are willing to support employers regardless, but there is a caveat, and that is that we if you will, we have a double-faceted mission and purpose. We exist to help employers meet their workforce needs in order to support their success, but we also exist to help job seekers find pathways to economic equity and upward mobility, and to be able to actually afford to live and support their families in this community. And so we do prioritize where we allocate our resources, if you will, not to be coy about it. And so for some of our support programs, particularly ones that involve spending significant amounts of dollars to support training and other kinds of related activities, we will have a tendency to reserve those dollars for occupations and job opportunities or related job opportunities that do offer a very clear path to a sustainability wage, if you will, or a living wage, if you will. Even if it doesn't start there, it needs to be able to offer a realistic pathway to getting there in a reasonably short period of time. And that's an obligation that we have to our sources of funding, right? To the federal government and the legislature and the legislation that underwrites and makes possible the funding, which has that expectation built into it. And I know increasingly the additional dollars that are coming down into the education system, especially into the community college system, also have those expectations built into them. That the state is injecting additional billions of dollars really into workforce development, not to support low-wage or low-end jobs, but really to help people find their way to economic equity and to upward mobility. That said, our challenge then is to figure out where those low-wage jobs fit into the ecosystem for a worker in an environment in which your challenge is to help that worker find a realistic and achievable pathway to self-sustainability from an income perspective. And I suspect, and I know that's a challenge that Work to Future grapples with on a continuing basis, and I suspect all of our organizations do in one way or another. Any other thoughts on that? Right. Then I wonder, another question came in for all of us, and this is something that several of us have touched on already in our earlier conversation, but I wonder, the question is, what careers and areas for workplace training and on-the-job training does each organization provide? And some of us have very large catalogs, so I'd invite us not to be exhaustive in replying to this question, but perhaps highlighting those areas that you think especially are your particular strengths in the context in which the question has been asked. And let's begin this time with Stephen, if I may.
Great question, Karen. Thank you so much. So some of the on-the-job trainings that I've seen based on my experience of either upskilling or reskilling, there seems to be a need for people experienced with machine technology, but not having that sort of CMM programming piece. They know how to operate the machine, they know how to do the standard troubleshooting, but as far as the actual coding itself, to have the machine do a specific function and measure at certain tolerances, that's something that the employee that's currently working can go back to the community college circuit to get reskilled to train to do. Another one that comes to mind is having somebody who's in computer information systems, who's coding in a different language other than the standard one. Let's say, for example, Python coding or JavaScript. So if they need to come back to the community college to learn the sort of fundamentals of what the sort of ideology, the theory of how that system operates, or how code is actually written and how it differentiates with some of the other competitors, that's something that another employer can have them come back to do. either a certificate of completion or having an AS degree to be able to have them move up in the career ladders, to be able to progress forward and show a sense of ownership to move up in the next position, whatever the sort of module is, whether it's a solutions architect, or is it an engineer, or is it a person who's providing solutions, whether it's an architect. So depending on what the skill that's asked, we do have a number of programs. San Jose City College, and I can speak probably on behalf of Mission, they have a number of programs and CET as well regarding what type of proficiency and sort of the breakdown, the sort of like expanding tree or olive branch of sort of the stemming of whether they want to do it piecemeal by either doing it over the course of a year, 2 years. They can talk to a counselor to see what their trajectory or roadmap of how long based on their sense of urgency.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Well, I mean, actually, I will. So with our school, the specific strengths are going to be based on what kind of industry you're looking for. We have skilled trades that are specific. So I'm going to take a couple from another question that was regarding construction services, which would include my green building construction, HVAC, or electrical. These 900-hour programs are 8 to 3 Monday through Friday. It's a short-term assignment where individuals are very hands-on and learning the trade so that they can go to work. So, I mean, I would recommend going to each of our websites so that you have a better understanding of our course catalog, as you were mentioning, because it could be a multitude of different positions. And we are constantly growing and adding new programs as we go, depending on the time of day. So I definitely want to encourage you as our new employer partners to, as it's been said before, reach out to any of us, all of us. We're happy to help and connect you to the right training program. We're not shy. We'll connect you to the right person if it's not us. So.
Well said. Thank you, Kate, Jeff, or Michael. Anything to add to what Stephen and Kate have already shared on the question?
I think that I would just be repeating.
Great. Well, there's no need for that.
I don't want to do.
Thank you.
I would invite anyone attending this to reach out to any of us, including Work to Future, to find out more. This is an awareness building, an introductory. Here we are, but we are here, and we're here to serve, and we'd like to serve.
Thank you. And that's correct. I'll just, I'm sorry, Michael, were you going to add something to that?
Yeah. If I can, so in terms of the workforce development, there have been 2 areas that Manufacturing San Jose has sort of worked on. One is highlighting and so bringing more visibility to career pathways in manufacturing for adults, especially those in underserved and under-resourced communities and those who face barriers to employment in the past. The other side of it, and this is all going, this is sort of the longer way of addressing the, sort of development of the skilled talent pool here in San Jose, is we've been working on a number of things to highlight both career pathways in manufacturing and pathways to entrepreneurship through career pathways in manufacturing and with youth. And so it started with our partnership with San Jose Works on their summer internship program, which is now happening quarterly in a way, thanks to the pandemic. It's back in 2019, we took over Manufacturing Week from the city, and we've been in partnership with the SVO and NextFlex. We've been managing that to different degrees. Of course, last year, there wasn't a whole lot we could manage because no one wanted to see anyone anywhere. But then we've also been developing this program called Inside Manufacturing, which is, if you guys are familiar, there was the Inside the Actor Studio show for a long, long time. And it was a way for filmmakers and, big personalities in stage and screen to talk about what motivated them to get into these roles and develop their careers. And so this Inside Manufacturing program actually puts the owners, the entrepreneurs, and the drivers of these organizations, these big and even small companies here in San Jose to not only highlight what brought them into careers in manufacturing, but what even motivated them to ultimately decide to start their own business. And what we found is these multiple exposure points to careers in manufacturing will start to really move the needle on encouraging a youth to no longer see manufacturing as sort of the oily, grimy, hot, sweaty shops of the past, and that these are for the most part some of the cleanest places you'd ever find, and that these jobs do lead to higher paying jobs over time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Everything that's been said with respect to what's on offer, I would underscore and encourage the audience that's interested in the kinds of opportunities that are out there, not only to explore the catalogs and websites of the organizations that are represented on this table, but other like organizations around the county as well. If your particular business has needs that you're not finding being addressed by the organizations that are on this panel this afternoon in specific skill set or curriculum sorts of ways, there's no shortage of resources out there in the community, and it also gives me the opportunity to point out a core difference between Work to Future and Mission College or a Manufacture San Jose or a CET or a San Jose City College in this arena, and that is we're not a training provider. We don't operate a school. We don't have a curriculum on anything per se with respect to skills acquisition. What we do is partner with organizations like Mission College and City College or Manufacture San Jose or CET and others to deliver the kinds of resources that employers need to meet their recruiting demands. And we help broker those relationships. And then when appropriate and necessary, we also help support them with dollars, with funding to minimize the cost to the employer and to support the organization's costs in relation to the development and delivery of those programs. So that's a slightly different role that we play in the ecosystem than a city college or a CET or a Mission or any one of the other training providers in the community. Thank you. I'm doing a time check here and looking at the clock, and I'm seeing that we've got just a few minutes left. So I'm wondering if there are any final thoughts that the panelists would like to share on the subjects that we've been discussing this afternoon before we wrap things up. And let me just go around the screen in this instance, and I'll begin with Jeff. And just to give a heads up, I'm going to begin with Jeff and end with Kate. So Michael and Stephen, you're going to be somewhere in between.
Well, I just want to express my appreciation to Work to Future, the Office of Economic Development at the City of San Jose, and of course, all of everyone who's attended, my colleagues, certainly, as well as the employers who have come in, and just say once again, this is the start. Please don't hit your leave the meeting button on your computer screen and figure that that's it. All of us, and speaking for all of us, we'd like to continue this dialogue one-on-one, one-to-many, and so forth. This is not something that, in terms of recruiting employees, it's not something that could be solved in one meeting. So let's continue the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Michael.
So I've said recently that one of the challenges that I felt, or sort of pressure I felt with Manufacture San Jose getting into this realm workforce development and employer to employee services is that there were so many other organizations doing somewhat similar work that I felt like we were sort of snaking our path around and maneuvering so that we weren't stepping on any toes. And what I eventually found is that that was the dumbest thing to do, because we're all aligned in the same mission, and that the best thing we could do is develop this community, this interconnectedness, and so that we are, you know, if, say, for example, an organization or a company comes up to us and says, hey, we need help hiring for so-and-so positions, or we're looking for skilled talent in these areas, there are organizations that are directly connected with that we have a pretty good relationship. And it's conversations like these that keep it going. And so to also then piggyback off of Jeff's comment, you know, this work and this conversation is ongoing, and more of these are both welcome and I think critical for, I think especially small businesses are so tunnel visioned into the day-to-day that it's hard for them to see that there are services available to them. And I think conversations like these are really important to highlight the resources that are available to everyone.
Thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, so Lawrence, and in the future, and everybody else on the panel, and all the employers that are currently tuned in today, thank you for coming and making an impact by at least giving us the opportunity to have that sort of podium to listen to the different types of services that we can definitely sort of strengthen your abilities to meet your hiring needs. We just really hope that you take advantage of this opportunity to be able to strengthen your sort of relationship with our community. We want to be able to contribute and give back. And if you are ever in any need of any services, employment or not, feel free to reach out to any of my colleagues here, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with one situation at a time. And we're hoping we can find some qualified folks for your positions.
Thank you, Stephen. And last but not least, Kate.
Well, to echo what everyone has said, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. And as it's been said, we are all here to help you. As a small business owner, you are in the day-to-day minutia of jobs. So don't forget, there are people here to help and guide you in the employment search, to post opportunities, and together we can do it one job at a time. So we thank you for allowing us to speak with you and start the conversation.
Thank you, Kate. That wraps up our conversation about employee recruitment and development resources that you can access at little or no cost in this community. If you'd like to follow up with any of today's panelists, please have pen and paper ready or handy. We've just put up on the screen the contact information for all of our panelists today. And we'll keep that information on the screen for a couple of minutes so that you can jot it down. While you're doing that, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank our panelists, to thank Michael Erickson from Manufacture San Jose, and Stephen Lee from San Jose City College, and Kate Manley from the Center for Employment Training, and Jeff Palin from Mission College for taking time out this afternoon to share with you and with all of us their insight and their experience into meeting the challenges of employee recruitment and employee development here in Silicon Valley. And thank you again to our audience for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found our conversation useful and interesting. I'll take a moment just to remind all of us that the next event will be coming up on August and on the 5th of the month, and it will be a webinar on marketing. So have a very good evening from everyone at the San Jose Office of Economic Development and from our panelists. Thank you all so very much for joining us this afternoon. And keep your eye out for a post-meeting survey that's going to arrive in your mailboxes. Your feedback will help the team that puts these webinars together to keep on improving the product that they're delivering to you. So thank you, everybody, and have a really great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.